And I don't have to just be black, right? And I don't have to just be Muslim, and I'm not just American. I'm all of those things. I'm all of those things, and I find the place with Islam as my foundation. I find the place where I'm all of those things in a manner that respects human dignity, human excellence, and the creation around me.
Welcome to Profound Conversations, a dynamic broadcast platform focused on building healthy communities.
Welcome back to Profound Conversation, the American experiment, knowledge, mercy, and the ongoing test of democracy. We are here with Marsha Nevins Muhammad and Imam Mujahideen Muhammad, both natives of New Jersey. And what I think is really interesting, I want to go into some of um, the democracy clashing that is happening right now in America. And I want to start off with Marsha, because you are a graduate of Howard University, and they're one of the 10 schools that were threatened for potential shooting after the death of what some call a conservative activist here in America.
Yeah. Howard, yes, I am bison for sure. Actually, my oldest daughter is a student currently at Howard. She's in her senior year. And, that's not something I'm familiar at Howard, especially in political climates that are controversial, because it is one of the more prominent HBCUs, and it happens to be in Washington, D.C., right? So we kind of get familiar with that being the case. But, Howard students are resilient. The institution is, right on top of the security, as they should be. But, those students are in school, as are all students across the country who are in institutions. And in their institutions, they're learning about the ideals of democracy, right? And then they're watching before their very eyes things happening that are to the contrary. And when instances like, bomb threats and shooting threats and all of those things come up, it's giving them those real life experiences, and you know also just like how is this to happen in the land of the free and the home of the brave, and this very idealistic society. And my hope is that they're seeing this, and they're looking for solutions, and they're developing solutions, and they're being creative as they're in those classrooms learning about how things have historically sort of traversed, right? Where it started from to where it, went to, and where it currently is. And my hope is that they're coming up with the very unique solutions that only they could come up with, right? We were able to develop things in our time, in these institutions, based on the circumstance that we lived in. But um, with their access to technology, and exposure to information at the drop of a hat, I'm very hopeful that they will start to come up with the solutions to these very sometimes ugly problems.
Right. And ugly it is, as we just recently heard of what was a modern day lynching in this country that was swept under the rug in a way that was almost deemed as you don't even need to figure out what happened
Right.
because we already have all the answers at a very questionable time in history. So this is not a light matter. This going right to the heart of the HBCUs, having someone experience death on not on just one of the campus. I've heard about a few deaths at the same time, simultaneously around the country,
Yeah.
at the same time.
And,
Um,
and and I think we're in. I think the difference for some of our young people growing up now is that they actually have friends, of different faiths, different nationalities, different communities. That wasn't the case when, lynching was actually a commonplace thing, right?
Mhm.
And so I think the sympathy, the empathy, um, maybe a little bit more intact for a lot of our young people, because it's like, you know, I have a friend who's white, or I have a friend who's Jewish, or I have a friend who's Catholic, or I have a friend who's black, or whatever it is, whatever the difference in your either your culture is. I know them and I love them. So how can we allow this to be? And I feel like that's more commonplace in 2025. And I would hope that that would be um, sort of like something that steers spearheads the students to do something, right? And not just students, right? Because even us who are, we're not students, we're parents, we're, community members, whatever our roles are, right? We're building relationships across cultures that, if you can stand for something horrific happening to someone um, who you have a relationship with, or your group of people, or your neighbor in your neighborhood you have a relationship with, it's now putting us to the test, right? Do we stand by and let that stuff happen? And if the answer is, well, my framework, right, my belief system doesn't allow me to do that, then it's like, okay, well, then what are we coming up with, right? What are we coming up with to combat these things? Because um, we can't just stand by and do nothing, right? Especially as people of faith. And I think I know we had that conversation about the 50th anniversary and sort of the mission driven piece of it. I think those are the questions that we are asking ourselves, or I'm encouraging us to ask ourselves, right? Like, take a step back. How has it been? What's been going on? Where do you want to go? And is the environment that you're currently in,
Mhm.
does it support that? And if it doesn't, then what are we doing? And what does the framework that you've accepted, whatever it is, for us as Islam, right? The framework that you accepted, what models do you have in those stories? I grew up, like I said, in the church, right? And so, we have all the Sunday school stories, and in Islam we have those stories too, right? And it's like they taught us lessons, and they gave us these models for what to do in scenarios, right? When we talk about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we talk about him being a model human being, right? And we talk about how those experiences that he was experiencing, we say it's the sunnah, right? But he didn't experience everything, right? So then we go to what we call the uswa, right? Like, well, how, what is the likelihood of how he would have handled a certain situation, given the way that he lived his life? And I think we need to take more time to do that kind of introspective work, because being Muslim is not just, taking shahada and I'm good, right? It's
Right.
it's work. It's work. You've accepted a mission, and
Well, you reverted back to Islam, right? So you grew
yes.
up. What stage did you take your Shahada, your declaration of Islam,
Mhm.
and how did that change your perspective on what America was
So I was about 28 years old, and like I said, I had grown up in the church, in the Baptist church, and um, I was really struggling with, the Trinity concept. And but I've always had this belief system, or this understanding that, like, I always felt like, if all these people believe in God, then we all have to have like some part of it like some part of the whole story. Like there's this story that is the real story, the real essence, the real truth, and we all got a piece of it. And so we're all sort of like being cheerleaders for the piece that we have and going really hardcore for it. Um,
Because I was reminded when you were talking about the Usra as that, what would Jesus do? Right?
yes,
That whole
absolutely.
common statement, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
And so I don't know that I ever um, tied faith to the way that I saw the country. And so going back to Imam Muhammad, that's the unique thing about his leadership is that um, it made for me what what I often see many people live in, like this sort of divergent experience where I have this one thing over here and these other things over here. It made it become one. And I think if anything, the change for me was seeing it all as one experience and not making those separations, because we sort of get lost in separating out the experience as a person of faith.
I once heard Imam Muhammad say that he spoke with James Brown, and James Brown told him that his whole inspiration for Black and I'm Proud came from his watching his father, Elijah Muhammad, as a leader within this civil rights movement. So it seems like his whole foundation was tied to this country from inception.
Right. And I don't have to just be black, right? And I don't have to just be Muslim, and I'm not just American. I'm all of those things. I'm all of those things, and I find the place with Islam as my foundation. I find the place where I'm all of those things in a manner that respects human dignity, human excellence, and the creation around me.
Well, I want to remind folks that if you like hearing what you hear, then you would want to join us as a friend of Profound Conversations. Let's get to 1,000 subscribers, and we encourage you to listen in on our programming as we speak to people about things like the 50th year anniversary of the Imam W.D. Muhammad community. Um, Imam Mujahideen, what brought you into the leadership of Imam Muhammad?
I had a quote that came to mind when we think of leadership in our community. We always say "born for the mission," right? Because that was one of the expressions that Imam Muhammad also received as he came into leadership, and so naturally. Taking on responsibility, it comes with some preparation. And so, because I was born and raised in this community, my father was a part of that original Nation of Islam underneath Honorable Elijah Muhammad, where he came in at the tail end, the last 4 years, 3 years. And so he was able to make the transition with Imam Muhammad. We know some made it and some left. And so, those that made it, they went through a lot of changes. As they were getting reconnected to Al Islam proper, it affected even the development of the children that they raised. But thankfully, we were also put in the environment to cultivate us alongside our parent generation to learn the religion. And so, going to the Claire Muhammad School, um, it's an institute for excellence. You don't get knowledge and don't share it, right? And so that's instilled in us. So no matter what profession I've experienced, that's always been my orientation. Whatever I learn, I'm obligated to share it. Those who know, they should tell those who don't know. And so by being orientated around that, of course, being in a community where we have as our obligation to pray, to prayer. And part of our prayer as a community, we have collective prayer, which is the Jumu'ah prayer, the gathering on Friday, and we give the lectures. And so, as a young man, again, going to these events, conventions, and stuff, our parents always put us out front, not just to boast and to show off, but to share. And so, we always took that to heart. And so, as becoming an adult, um, born and raised in Newark, New Jersey, we had a tragic situation at our masjid there, the loss of our imam who came before me. And for about a year or so, the community was in rotation with leadership internally, and I came to assist in any way I can possibly. We started out helping with the Claremont Muhammad School. Sister Marsha is also the principal there, and so time came where the community had to decide, and we had a few of us that went, and we accepted the recommendation to be the imam, and so that's how I got my residency there in Newark, New Jersey. Alhamdulillah, Masjid Muhammad Newark.
And you are about to host another large 50th year anniversary event. You did it in Philadelphia, one of the homes of the brotherly love, right? And now you're looking to lay foundation in Newark, New Jersey, which is also one of those kind of battleground cities that's always been historically rich. So let tell us how what's going to happen in New Jersey as part of this 50th year marking is something that will help resonate and recalibrate people who want to be in association or inspired by Imam W.D. Muhammad.
Absolutely. I'll just kick it off real quick and pass it over to Marsha. We're also connected with events that's going on in Nashville, Tennessee, inshallah, next weekend, as well as at the end of the month, next month, we'll be in Raleigh, Durham. But one of the biggest, another bigger event going on is the annual Muslim Journal, A Time to Be Grateful. Initially, we weren't going to have it because we wanted to all focus on making sure that we can all come together to celebrate in Philadelphia. We did that very successfully, but we still are in need for our annual fundraiser. It's the It's the Muslim Journal's annual fundraiser, a paper that has been sustained over 62 years, going back to Al Hajj Malik Shabazz, Malcolm X at the time, and it had its different iterations of the Bilalian News, the American Muslim Journal, and the Muslim Journal, what it is now. And so we're having a weekend, December 11th to the 14th, where people from around the country and international, we do have some guests coming from Senegal and Uzbekistan and other places to celebrate the rich history of our institution as the Muslim Journal, which is a literacy organization that's preserving our cultural heritage. And we're honored to be the host as Masjid Muhammad Newark.
Yeah, and I mean, A Time to Be Grateful is one of those events where, the community comes out in large numbers. We just had that with IWDM 50, and so before IWDM 50, right? Because that was like a point in time, 50 years. But prior to that, A Time to Be Grateful has been that event where people across the country are able to come together, and from Imam Muhammad's community and those who support the work to support the journal, but also to just be among each other and share ideas and ideals that will help to propel us forward beyond the work that we're currently doing, and to really sort of put our stamp in the community and in the society for the things that we've been given, the gift that we've been given in Imam Muhammad to really make our mark and remake the world again with that focus on human decency and human excellence, and not just going into a thing for yourself, but for the good of the whole. And then the other thing, about the journal is being able to tell our story. And so A Time to Be Grateful is just another moment where we sort of center in on that, being able to tell our story in our own publication where it doesn't get watered down, or we don't get a story that we can't trust. Similar to the work that you all are doing here, right? We're inviting, 1,000 subscribers to join and to watch and to be a part of these conversations, because we want to make sure that we keep the story pure and authentic, and that we continue to tell the stories in that manner.
Well, you've heard it here from Marsha Nevins Muhammad and Imam Mujahideen Muhammad. And if people want to get more information about the ongoing program for the 50th year anniversary, where do they go? Is there a website?
Yes, so we have a website, masjidmuhammadnewark.org. You'll find information all about A Time to Be Grateful, registration, sponsorship, and presentations.
Okay, you've heard it here on Profound Conversations, the American Experiment, Knowledge, Mercy, and the Ongoing Test of Democracy. Thank you both for being part of the show.
Thank
you for
you.
having us.